We're now going to look at the importance of not leaving yourself behind. So often veterans are told that you just need to forget about where you were, where you came from and what you did, and just adjust and adapt into civilian territory. I'd like you to think about, is it important to go back, heal the wounded parts of yourself and bring them forward? I'd like you to look at what are the attributes of the veteran and attributes of who you were that you need to hold and value and bring them and combine them with your civilian. Please draw on your experiences and outline those factors that you feel are useful for others to hear. Thanks. Okay, Bob, so what we're going to do now is we're really going to look at the concept of, did you leave yourself behind? How did you go back and rescue yourself? What has still been left behind? And what are the things that you did where you were able to heal yourself forward and return to the parts of yourself? Bob.
I think mine's been a rolling cascade for many years, not just during transition, before and after. But I think what I did leave behind purposely for a while was actually the military persona. I actually parked it and tried to be distinguishable not by that in any way. And then realized as I was starting to feel more comfortable that it is a part of me. It doesn't define me, but it's a part of my life. And so I need to express it and let it be seen. Yeah, I didn't want to be the one who stepped up to lead a thing all the time. I wanted to be the one who would sit back and wait for someone to say, "Hey, Bob, you should do pretty good. You lead this." So I parked it for the military persona for a while, and I let it back in after I'd sort of got myself settled into my post-service relationship with the community and everything.
So good wisdom. We need to coexist with who we were and still are. Thank you. Ian.
Yeah, I think it's true, isn't it, that when we leave home, the second we leave home and go to work, when you're in uniform, you adopt a different work face, and you're a different you are a different person for most people I've spoken to. There's probably exceptions. And I think I found that I didn't want to have that work face when I got out, but it was something that I missed, and but I also didn't want to go fully back to being that rigid, totally focused person. But I found in moving back into the veteran community after 17 years of divorcing myself from the veteran world, that I did actually move back in, and I was able to feel very, very comfortable working in that world and assisting everybody that worked within it to support veterans and veterans themselves.
Okay.
And so that for me was something that helped me, was to just have
So
a
it's
different face.
It's that interweave, Ian, isn't it? And that it's not about leaving yourself behind, but it's the interweave between our veteran and our civilian, and the transformation that occurs that is a combination of both that live within us. And in that is our potential to heal and form beautiful relationships.
Yes.
So thank you for raising that. I appreciate it.
I'm going to politely pass on this one because I'm still not clear on how to articulate it, especially within the
Take your time.
timeframe.
If it comes up, we always can get up
Skip
later.
Frosty. Thank you.
Frosty.
So I guess I joined the military at 19, and I was pretty frayed edges, no real concept of what was happening in the world. And I found myself fitting into that machine very easily. I became a cog in a well-oiled machine. And as a cog in that machine, I was useful, and I was put to every single extreme of my use, and I weared my edges off in that machine. And I got to the point where I became a broken cog in the machine. And the smartest thing to do on a broken cog in a machine is to throw it out and put the next one in. And that's how I looked at myself in that. So it was very hard for me to look at myself and see any worth at all. And then with the illnesses and everything else on top of that, that burden that I became, I completely left myself behind because I didn't see the value in me being a part of anything. And again, I think once I started to get better again and I started to identify that there is value that I could bring to the world, and the big thing that I think saved me was my daughters. The fact that I'm not going to be around forever with them. There's going to be a time where I have to pass on, and they're going to be left in this world by themselves. And in that, I've made it my mission to try and ensure that I leave the place a little bit better than what it was when I found it. And if I can achieve that, I feel like I've brought value back into that. And that's what enabled me to see my own value and then, I guess, come back to myself and bring myself along for this journey without, again, leaving myself in the dirt.
Thanks, Trusty. And that returning back and healing is so much a part of what we've already discussed. It involves an activation of all the components of healing that we have looked at today. JJ.
I had to find my younger self to heal, because when I left school and joined the army at 17, I had a new identity, new purpose, all these sort of things, and it really took over. And I left old JJ behind, and that was sad. And I thought I had to do it to be the protector and be the big fearless warrior and all this sort of stuff, and it's not the way, you know. So once I was able to find little JJ again and then nurture him how he should have been from within myself, you know, I'm glad that I found myself again. So I lost myself there for a period in the defense and in the world and whatnot, but I'd like to think that these days I've found again from that little young JJ to where I am today. So and I have it close to my heart.
So really anybody who watches this, if they're wanting to know where their capacity to heal is your willingness to go back on a rescue mission.
Yeah.
To heal yourself and bring it back.
Yeah. Where did it get broken? Where did the cog get broken? Was it at such a young age? Was it at this age? Cool, let's go there. I needed to find out. And for me, it was at a much younger age than most.
Well, many people will be mapping back to childhood.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I've sat with Special Force guys and we identified that at 6 years old, they were already working at a Special Force level, situationally attentive.
Yeah.
You know, all the skill sets were there, which is why they make good tier 1 units.
100%.
So I didn't really have a military persona. I didn't really let go of my civilian persona in the military. So when I left, I didn't really leave much behind. But what I to go back to JJ, I'll use like Hook. I talk in analogies, so and movies. So it was my childhood and my playfulness that I'd lost. Having my kids allowed that to come back out of me, because what the military took away from me towards the end was the ability to be the jokester, to be the playful, to be, you know, the clown, the larrikin. And so that's what I go back and find, that the kid of who I was. Like in that scene in Hook where the boy's looking at Robin Williams and he pulls his face back and says, "There you are, Peter." That's kind of what I went looking for, is to find Daniel, the playful little kid that enjoys life rather than wants to fucking burn the world down.
So when we do heal and return to ourselves, we re-find the capacity to play.
Yeah. Play is everything, right? If you can't have fun and play, well, then you might as well piss off.
Yeah. You know, Sam, what I understand as we pull this to a close is that in my generation, we didn't know we left ourselves behind because there was nothing.
Yeah.
And I only realized in returning to tribe, whether it was the guys I was sitting with as a psychologist or the tribes that I belonged to, that I really truly began to heal and remember. And in that remembering and the being in the presence of brothers and sisters, I always say made me a better husband, father, psychologist, human. So in tribe we heal.
Yeah.
And tribe is one of our most valuable components to return. So gentlemen, thank you for sharing. And we'll jump into the next conversation soon. All right, so what we're going to look at now, we're looking at, it's a thing I call about, the rescue mission. As much as we would never leave a man behind, the question I always ask is, do you feel you've left yourself behind? And the question I'm asking each of you now is, in some ways, did you leave yourself behind, even if the leaving of yourself behind was you were severed without choice, but what happened to the wounded part of yourself that needed to be rescued and healed? I don't know if that helps make sense, if from the moral injury point of view. Kieran, I don't know what's coming up for you on this one. You've got big eyes here.
Heaps is coming up.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
So I've done about 14 years of studying at a school for self-knowledge. So neuroscience and psychology aside, this was probably the most profound shift that I ever had. And I can complement this, I suppose, with neuroscience, and that was learning to observe the thoughts rather than be the thoughts. And I know one of the guests earlier touched on that. That was interesting in that moment when I thought just physics. To observe any phenomena requires a point of observation and whatever's being observed. So if there's a trickle of thoughts, ideas, a bundle of thinking and feelings, if it's observable, what's observing it? And I think the term or terminology in modern neuroscience is best described as conscious awareness.
Okay.
So the self and little s self and the self capital S. Who I am isn't what I am. Being in the military, that got covered over with push-ups and chin-ups and drinking a lot of beer and bullets and guns. However, the funny thing was, it was always there, but covered up. So when you say, where did I lose myself? It was probably growing up in my family, naturally introverted, but I had to create an extroverted facade. That worked well in the military as well, but it didn't work getting out. And so getting out of the military and then going, there is, and you've said it a few times, Barry, something still, silent, unmoving behind the movement and the noise. And for me, I don't want to give it a word, but that to me is finding my capital S self again.
So that ability to find that place and then witness and observe allowed you to recognize what was possibly left behind and how that can be worked with and healed.
All the above.
Yeah.
Being still and observing has a funny way of just letting it dissolve as well.
Which paying attention to with care does. Yeah. Spot on. Thank you. Ben?
I reflect on when I left myself behind, and I think way beyond when I joined the military. I grew up with a lot of responsibility, raising my sisters and, with I suppose in that era, a family that worked a lot and a lot of, responsibility on me at a young age. And I carried that into the military. And, I carried a lot of responsibility all the way through, accelerating through and wanting to achieve and wanting to be better and becoming a leader in the military, I suppose. And I think I put the fun away very, very young. And that carried through my military career. Like, the fun wasn't there for me. It was more about achieving and purpose and delivering and being on time and being the model person, the person that had the answer, that was ready to fix things. But I think during that journey as a leader, I learned that, as I suppose a systems thinker is what I'd probably call myself, that the military is a very process-driven environment. People rely on process to achieve outcomes.
Yeah.
But when processes are slightly, fuzzy or not correct, and that's when the people thinking comes into place. And in a system like the military, where people are not afforded that psychological freedom to express themselves and to say something's wrong, it creates moral injuries in people.
Yeah.
So leaving myself behind is probably looking back at that, but also more importantly, it's about carrying forwards. I need to be a leader to maintain that psychological safety in some way and to let people have fun at work. And I think that's, my key reflection is, you can't let the fun disappear and things get too serious though.
So it's ability to also in the wonderful work of healing is also, remember, we have the capacity for play.
Yeah.
I think also when you talked about, I like that term, being left behind, because I think sometimes we think, go back to your veteran that we've left behind, but sometimes behind the veteran is the child that may have had some adverse childhood experiences. And so we begin the journey by going back and then realize, well, we still got to go another 3 kilometers back. But when we identify that, we can then heal forward as we recognize that there's the veteran and there's the child, and both are asking us to recognize them, hold them, and bring them into the adult world. So thank you for raising that. Appreciate it. Kate.
And what I'd like to put a voice to is something that I observe within the veteran community with leaving themselves behind, is there are quite a lot of external support agencies and groups. However, I feel that a lot of these are run by people who have actually left themselves behind. So these people are doing what they believe is great for the community, but they're actually doing themselves and the community a disservice because they haven't come through that discomfort yet. They haven't done their healing. So they're coming from a place that isn't embodied. And so they're perhaps not giving the best advice at all times, or they're coming from a place of depletion. So I believe if people are in those roles, the journey doesn't end. So they either in the journey doing the work or coming from a place of overflow. They're doing all the things that allow them to down-regulate their nervous system, and they're coming from a place of overflow. I'm not seeing that. So I feel like there are many within the community in those leadership positions who have actually left themselves behind.
And it's a classic wounded healer. Who's doing the work? Is it the wounded part of the healer, or is it the healer part of the healer? As Alex and I were talking about, we might start off with a need to really be of service and heal, but somewhere along the line, as a result of our training, parts of ourselves and our hearts get left behind. So these are good critical questions to ask, and thank you for raising it. Dan?
Leaving behind, again, the fun and the child, that's what I left behind. I like to have fun and make everything fun. Curious and adaptability is if I lose anything, that's what I left behind was my curiosity, because of everything that happened. And then I was able to find it again through understanding who I am, value sets, breaking it all down at that kind of level. But you can't, I also think that you can't be constantly looking in the revision mirror, looking what's behind you, because it's happened, right? There's nothing you can do about it.
No.
You've got to give up the illusion that the past can be anything different. All right. So you can't change it, but you can learn from it to keep moving forward. So yes, you can leave things behind, but some of the things that you need to leave behind.
Correct.
And they're probably better left behind you than in front of you. So yeah.
So there's some things we definitely want to take out our pack.
Yeah.
And I also ask, I also feel that there's sometimes the functional things, like often say I use the example of veterans, we like watching doorways.
Yeah.
Well, is it impacting on your functioning? No. Is it impacting on your relationship? No. Probably not a bad skill at this age. Do we need to pay attention to it? No. So we choose which rocks.
Yeah, it's exactly. I don't watch doorways anymore. I like to live on it as an adrenaline junkie. If someone bursts in, don't let me see it. Let me feel it first.
Okay, sure. I think I need to talk to you. Don't make an appointment. Quickly before you two.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of all the veterans that I've seen sort of over the years and the different. I mean, I don't think you can. You can't put it all into two categories, but I'll try to. I think there's a category of veteran that's had a very active service, and a lot of what they're moving beyond is a set of a whole bunch of sort of combat warlike experiences that they've been involved in and moving through. And that is a particular kind of experience and how you navigate that pathway. I think another very common type of I suppose experience is much more that administrative culture experience, and that probably has more in common with a lot of workplaces, except for the fact that, as we've said, the military workplace is a 24/7 workplace. So that sort of industrial work issues can be greatly magnified when you can't leave it. So I think that's a different kind of a journey for people moving through those. That's probably how I'd reflect on it. And I'm sure there are other categories, but there are two big ones that appear.
All different reflections from different mirrors, and it just gives people so many more opportunities to think about their journey by hearing this.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. And
I really like Ted's version. There's such a huge component of change and changeability right the way through the ADF. There's Big Army version 1, Big Army version 2, then Big Navy, and all of the paradigms and things start to change, and 4th Battalion stands up, etc. So much change all happens all the time with you guys, and posting cycles and DOCM and schema, all of that management of others and of the system happens all the time. And then I think about the Civ Mill environment and to think, yeah, so I was at this conference in Dusseldorf, and they talked about in the European setting with CBRN and how Civ Mill interoperability, it's all embedded, everyone's super happy because everyone's ready. How does this happen at the local level, that civilian military cooperation and understanding? And I think about the Canadian model, about the OSI clinics that they have. And there was this moment where in Calgary clinic that sits on top of this Westfields looking like building, so that people can walk in relatively unknown and be a veteran inside this tent, and then come out, rejoin their family shopping at Woolworths. And I was there when they rolled out 20 ukuleles as therapy. And how did that happen, right? The changeability question. What did they leave behind? They left behind dogma, facilitated by the lead nurse, Scott Lover, who was approached by the psychologist, and psychologist delivered psychology through yoga. And post a yoga session, one of the veterans said, "Oh, so I have this really weird question. I don't think it's going to ever stand up, but ukulele. Can we have a ukulele program? Can you lead it? Can you ask to be represented? Can you achieve buy-in and get it done?" 1 month later, the day that I happened to be there, 20 ukuleles arrived, not for music therapy. It wasn't part of a music therapy tea for therapy. Ukuleles arrived because it helped connect the experiences in that environment. I thought, well, this is paradigm shifting. I think medicine is going through, particularly for uniformed personnel, led by defense, led by military, where this question is now being demanded. Are we being left behind because we are no longer relevant, seen to be relevant, actually not relevant in the delivery of advice? Because the military establishments are looking to us and we're delivering really dogma-like approaches and content. And here we have Ted, who's gone all the way out to deliver TMS into Australia, the know-how to do that, and they're now delivering ketamine, S-ketamine, psilocybin, MDMA into an entire new field that needs couching with TGA, MBS, MSAG, PBAC, all of those humans who then represent policy decisions and then feedback into Joint Health Command and then interoperability and when, and please don't utter the J52 because that's a dead end. And all of that, right? You think, well, in order to achieve that, you need to have trust. You need to have the people who know what they're doing. You need to have people who can step in quickly and then say, I can help this change happen from dogma through doctrine into a new provision of an adaptability that says, if ever we go into a new space called whatever, and we might be entering into that space now, we can scale up. We can enter that interoperability space, and we can do it quietly. We can do it loudly. We can enter into those conversations that says, we the helpers, we can advise and facilitate, but over to you guys to house that. And recently, we've seen bits of that in policy through ADHD assessments and housing where ADHD now sits inside defense, because sustainment and retention are big things. So from my perspective, we've come a long way in such a short space of time. And those iterations of paradigm shifts from dogma, we the doctor, trust us, we know what we're doing, so maybe we don't know what we're doing, and maybe we need to work together. God help us saying that. And letting go of that belief that we have and we are the truth and the only truth, to then allow other narratives of truth to be equal.
Yeah.
That's dangerous, right? Because that starts to strike at the heart of who's the expert inside the room. And that's cool. I like that. And then we need some SF thinking language to go, hey, how do we tackle this problem in a way that's mission critical, that's timely and fit for purpose for today, tomorrow, maybe for next week, but we'll get through to the next week if we deal with today and tomorrow. And then maybe we'll have a new set of skill sets that says, when you encounter these problems and you're looking at a J2 or J3 for a period of time, it's not a death sentence, and CME can come back around and say, it's all right. Go and tackle this, go and do these psychotherapies, go and do the psychedelic assisted therapy, do it in location. That'd be cool. And then come back in, because your mission to fulfill still remains there. The job and task is still there to be done, rather than, oh, well, you're a bit broken now, sorry, and all of those skill sets lost. So I reckon the next phase of that serve-mill cooperation, the language and the pivots around that now, the foundations are set. They're still raw. They're still new. People are still squabbling about, ADHD meds. What do we do about that? And should they be J1 and J2 because they rely on meds? Those are good questions to have. But the danger is, let's encounter that question of who's the expert in the room. Maybe we're all experts in the room, and that's okay.
Spot on. So it's leveling the playing field. And I mean, if you think about it, I think if we put it all together, there's a shared responsibility for the veteran to do their side of the work on their territory, and a shared responsibility for all the allied health professionals to have a critical, compassionate, and respectful look with open eyes and a willingness to expand. And when the two meet, we've got a partnership. So thanks, gentlemen, ladies. Okay, so what we're going to look at today is we're going to look at the whole thing about leaving yourself behind. So often in working with veterans and reading stuff, it's often you went to war. Why are you always wanting to talk about war? It's finished. It's over. Forget about who you are. You're a civilian now. And my question to them always was, well, surely there's value in who we were and combining it with who we are now. So we're going to look today at, should you leave yourself behind? Did you leave yourself behind? Why was it left behind, and what did you do and to return yourself back to yourself in a transformed way? It's a big topic, so take the jewels out of it and distill it in 3 to 5 minutes. That's your mission. Kieran.
Mission accepted. Might fail. Yeah, it's a big question. For me personally, I didn't know who I was anyway. And if I can fall back on neuroscience for a moment, there is no locus in the brain for me. We can't actually see it. So growing up in a large family, so I'm number 10 out of 12 children. Irish, Catholic, yes, we had television. But it was always on SBS in the 70s, if you remember those late night movies. I digress. In a big family, being 10th in the food chain, if you didn't speak up and have a sort of certain character, you wouldn't get fed, so to speak. Fed, nurtured, lovingly, caringly, physical food. You had to be quick. What I noticed looking back at creating this behavior was actually coupled with a lot of anxiety, and I would find myself as a young boy sitting on a rock by the dam in the forest on my own, and that's where I felt peace and very comfortable. And I think that's naturally who I was. And the character that I played in the house, which was fun, was a character that fit the needs of that given environment. Likewise, moving into the military, transitioning that character into a larger family was needed to meet the needs of that culture and environment. But then once I got out, I remembered the boy who sat on the rock and found peace. It didn't mean that getting out went just chop everything off and leave it behind, because there are some really great traits we learn in the military, and I think being timely is good. I just don't need to couple it with anxiety. It's respect for other people. It's I like having my room clean. So those very simple disciplines, you can choose now what will benefit you once you're out, and you can choose what you want to discard as well. Some will help and some won't, and that's part of the journey that you might encourage. I guess the question is, what if getting out of the military is the hardest transition you have? What if it's the fight of your life? What if you can prepare yourself that every day when you get out of bed, it feels like a 50-kilogram plate in your chest? But the philosophy and the discipline can aid in pushing through when you don't want to push. And I might sound a bit corny, but you literally can transfer those skills that you had in the military. Some things might have been bad, but I'll take some positive as well. And that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, perfect, Kieran. And that whole concept that nothing's ever a waste. We identify the values in service. So why would we leave those values behind? And if we can adopt those values, surely we bring parts of ourselves back to ourselves. So thank you for that. Kate, please.
I'm going to go with the angle that left our bodies behind. So I know from myself, like military, Kate, 10 years ago, I was all in my mind. Mind and body were completely separated. I was looking externally for all the answers, and had seeking behaviors where I'd be out, doing particular things to fill a void that I had inside. Whereas when I learnt to and came to the bringing the mind and body back together, that integration piece, connecting to breath or movement or my creative self expression and bringing those two together, it changed things. An example of this is I would go along to veteran group meetups because I'm like, I'm going to help people. Yes, this is one of my seeking behaviors. I'm going to help everybody and distract myself. And so I'd go there and I'd sit within this toxic conversation of all the problems, all the apples on the tree, this challenge, this issue, this diagnosis. And it wasn't until I learned through my own experiences, it's not about the apples or even the leaves or branches. It's about the trunk of the tree and the roots. It's about really coming down into the body, into the depths of who you are, to discover what that is, how that feels, how that looks, and then move forward from there. So I guess in summarization of this is we've left our bodies behind.
I love it. I mean, I've always talked about leaving our veteran behind, but this is a reframe I absolutely love, that we actually leave our bodies behind as well. So perfect. Thank you. Beck, what's coming up for you?
Couple little things like, things happen for us, not to us. So all our journey is the lessons of life and part of it. So I think when we can look at it like that, it takes you out of victim mentality somewhat.
Yeah.
And, the more you learn, the better equipped you are to move forward in your life. So I feel like I got asked, when on my farewell from the army, I said, well, I'm not, although I'm leaving that and I'm grateful, I have no regrets. I said, but I get to take the good bits with me. I can keep my memories, my experiences, and the people, the ones that don't serve me. Thank you, they're left behind, and that's totally fine with me. But because it's weird, I didn't always feel like I fit in, but you just put on a persona and personality-wise, there were elements that I could easily do, but I always did feel a bit on the outer. And then realizing, Brene Brown, I'll plug her because she's amazing. Fitting in is the opposite of belonging as well. So when you're trying to fit in, it means you're not belonging because it's not your true authentic self. So what I feel is I left behind whoever that was, but I've returned to my true authentic self now. Because, they say we sort of lose that around that 3, 4, 5 years old mark. Then we become, conditioned and taught who to be, what to be. So that goes away for a while. But then you can come back to that. So I don't tend to I talk about bits in the military. There's always good memories, but I don't kind of hang on to the bad stuff for the most part. And that's okay because they were lessons. I take them as lessons. And, now I'm better for all of it, I guess.
I love it. It's like, what comes to me that in that mission of leaving ourselves behind is that we talk about connecting with tribe and bringing the values forward, but we've got, as much as we've got that journey inward, which you raised, there's also our internal tribe that we need to refine and belong to. So thanks for raising that perspective. Appreciate it. Ian?
Yeah, to me, it's very similar. I went to boarding school from age 12. Boys' boarding school, quite a lot of bastardization, and you couldn't escape. You know what? With those people, I haven't seen them for 20 or 30 years some days, and that I can meet them and I can take up from the discussion that we had 20 or 30 years ago. The same thing that we experience in the service. So to me, I can relate to that straight away. And what I want to impart and put on those that listen to this course, this course, is what I've observed now as the chairman of a recruitment company. So after a couple of hundred people that I employ, and there's a national payroll company that pays about 1,000 people, and a lot of those are veterans. They know that it's a veteran-owned business, so they know they can talk to me because I care for them as though they were my employees. And this, a few of the things that I've got out of things because we're trained to talk and to communicate rapidly, trustworthy, things like that. But when you get out, you've got to realise that all those skills that you have, people can get jealous. Even in, say, in private business, people will still talk quicker like that. But if you're that confident, progressive self, people can think that you're going to undermine them. And they will, in fact, undermine you because they've been there longer than you, and you'll lose all that confidence and everything that you've got. Likewise, in the public service, if you join the public service, which I did for a year or so as an SES officer, when someone has a problem in the military, well, then we fix it. Boom, boom, boom. In the public service, if you've got a problem, it's time to go and have a cup of coffee and have a couple of bickies. And then we come back and then we discuss it. It's different. And so there's a place there for you to say, I can still use all those skills that I've developed. I'm just not going to exercise them immediately, because if I do, people will become frightened. Not frightened, that's not the right word, but they'll want to undermine you and put you out of your place. And that's not what you intend, but that's a lesson that I learned from everybody, and I passed it on. So for me, I thought the best way to describe it was that we are all civilians that transitioned to the military, particularly at a young age, and we learnt what we'd learnt, and now we're becoming a civilian again with all those skills. And that's the way I've been able to describe it to people, because you are a highly trained individual, more training than most civilians ever get. And you've just got to be able to gently introduce that. Give yourself a good pull through, as you say, if you clear all out, reset yourself, and then progressively exercise all those skills again, and get yourself promoted, get your identity back, and everything else like that.
Perfect. So again, I think the wisdom is always that it's not about leaving ourselves behind. It's about adjusting and adapting who we are to the new demands and new territories. So thanks for raising that, Ian. Thank you. Michelle?
Yeah, so I've been talking in bits and pieces about model, like the resilience factor. And the reason why I love this is partially because it's colorful, and partially because I'm I was going to say black and white person, but this totally doesn't work, does it? I like to see things practically. And what I've been talking about before is the external factors that are outside of ourselves. And you've just been talking about like the skill factor of knowing like you have so much that you brought with you from the military service. It's just, when do I unleash it at the right time that I keep kind of everyone on board? So that's really cool. But the inside the donut is about the self, which is what Kate and Beck, you girls are talking about, and how important it is. Because if you don't know yourself, I find it difficult then to kind of map onto the factors outside of who we are to be able to move forward. There is nothing in here about negative. There's nothing in there about you can't do this, or we need to focus on these symptoms. It's only picking what works for you, which means that internally you can keep that internal resilience. So the three factors that help you to have internal resilience to move forward, to engage in those factors, which then when you're engaging in those factors, it then helps you to remain resilient on the inside. The three factors is seeing that you have stuff in your life and being able to engage in it. So the three so examples of what you have are people around you who love you, and people who can also keep you accountable as well. And that's always helpful. The second one is the self-concept, which I think, Beck, you were really focusing on. And that is, I need to love myself. I need to know that I'm good enough, that people want to be around me, that I have stuff to offer. And so some of the things that you can say to yourself, which Brene Brown would love, is that I am a likable person. I'm caring. I am an optimist. And even when things go in a really bad way, turning around and saying, okay, how can I learn from this? And the last one is the self-efficacy. These are things that I can do. So like cooking or driving or problem solving. But there are other things, basically like when I have problems, I can solve them. We all have those skills from the service. And it's so many. It's just a way of kind of trying to put it into context in the civilian life. I can figure out who to talk to and at the right time. And so, no matter what's going on, if you can just build your internal self and then, engage with, the factors on the outside of you, you only need 3 good ones. The stool will stay up. If you cut one off, you'll fall down. So just focus on the top 3 or 4, and then that will then build your ability to be able to respond to the others in your life that might not be as strong, like the work factor or education factor, etc. But just focus on what you can do on the positives, because yes, we need to treat symptoms, etc. And yes, otherwise I wouldn't have a job, and so therefore it is important. But, just look at you as a person and engage in the factors in your life where you're thriving the most.
Thanks, Michelle. And I mean, I know the donut, and you want to keep one of those in your backpack and take a good bite out of it every now and then,
Yeah.
because there's some good wisdom in it. And so thank you for taking us on a little trip through it.
Yeah.
There's good wisdom. And Andrew, last but not least.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. What did you leave behind? It's such a great question. I love it. It makes me think of lots of other questions, and it sort of touches on the neuroscience bit that we just talked about. We certainly can't leave it all behind. We can't actually close the door on it, because that's just not possible, and it's going to come out in all kinds of ways. So we have to work out how we're going to choose. We've got agency. What do we bring forward, and what do we continue and take hold of, and what do we actually process and leave behind? But we've got to do that deliberately. Kieran, you mentioned about the 50 kilogram weight, and I think, yeah, so we there's stuff we can't leave behind. There's stuff we actually need to deal with. Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And how do we integrate? How do we integrate it? How do we make sure that moving forward we really embrace and take on all the good, and then process the things that we are going to leave behind. But I think it's deliberate. We've got to do that very deliberately.
I think what you bring to my mind is that I think from when we're born or whatever, rocks are put in our backpack.
Yeah.
We tend to add a couple as we go along in our lives. But I don't think we're supposed to be walking with empty backpacks. I think we need the weight.
Yeah.
Within the discomfort is the wisdom. And that weight keeps us grounded, and it makes us pay attention. It keeps our hearts open, and it informs compassion. So it's not about emptying the backpack, but it's about valuing the weight in the backpack that's appropriate. So thank you for raising that. Well, guys, that was a bit of a good speed trip through collecting ourselves from the past, and thank you for what you all raised. There's some good stuff there. Appreciate it.